like to welcome everyone, employees of the city, council members, and members of the public to the meeting. I would like everyone to silence their electronic devices at this time, and we'll call upon Councilman Bingham for the invocation.
Dear Father in heaven, we're grateful for this day. As students of Florida College, we're grateful for this opportunity we've been given by the city to participate in this event. We ask for your blessing on this decision that we make today, that we all make this decision with humility and wisdom. All these things we pray. Amen.
We'll now ask Councilman Montgomery to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any persons wishing to be heard on items not on the agenda can turn in that form to the city clerk at this time. First off, we have a proclamation for Temple Terrace City Government Day. Whereas city government is the government closest to most citizens and the one with the most direct daily impact upon its residents, and whereas city government is administered for and by its citizens and is dependent upon public commitment to and understanding of its many responsibilities, and whereas city government officials and employees share the responsibility to pass along their understanding of public services and their benefits, and whereas Florida City Government Day is a very important time to recognize the important role played by city government in our lives, and whereas this day, October the 23rd, 2018, offers an important opportunity to spread the word to all citizens of Florida that they can shape and influence this branch of government through a variety of different, or which is closest to the people. And whereas the City of Temple Terrace and Florida College have joined together to teach students and other citizens about municipal government through a variety of different projects and information. And whereas Florida City Government Day offers an important opportunity to convey to all the students of Florida College that they can shape and influence government through their civic involvement. Now, therefore, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, do hereby proclaim as follows. Section 1, that the City of Temple Terrace does encourage all citizens, city government officials, and employees to do everything possible to ensure that Florida City Government Day, October the 23rd, 2018, is recognized and celebrated accordingly. Section 2, that the City of Temple Terrace does encourage educational partnerships between city government and schools such as Florida College. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the great seal of the City of Temple Terrace to be affixed at Temple Terrace, Florida, this 23rd day of October, 2018. In consideration of meetings from previous meetings, there are none. And persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda. A 3-minute time limit will be imposed on all comments from the public. Individual members of the public who are present in the audience may designate in writing a representative to speak on their behalf, not extending beyond a 10-minute period. Speakers must come to the podium and state their name and city of residence. During public comment on items not on the agenda, the city manager and directors in attendance do make note of these items. During the city manager's report later in the agenda, the city manager may make a comment on the items a person brings up, or where further research is necessary, he or the staff that the city manager assigns to this will reach back to our residents. All resident comments are taken seriously and will be followed up with. Are there any members of the public wishing to make a statement at this time?
I'll be the first.
Thank you.
Really?
I know. I'm sorry, Chief. Good morning. My name is Tom Baroni. I reside at 104 Mission Hills Avenue. I'm here today because it was brought to my attention that you want to lower the work week to 4 days a week, 10 hours a day. My main concern this morning is how am I going to apply for a building permit if I need a permit on, let's say, a Friday afternoon, if the building is closed? What if I have to pay my water account that day? Who's going to take care of the, and address the issues that I have? Also, I'm guessing that you're doing this to save revenue for the city. So my question to the council and the mayor, will you take a cut in your pay to shorten the work week? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is David Pogorlich. I live in Temple Terrace. I've been a resident here for 18 years. And I can't believe the size of the bike lanes you guys put in. I have a big truck. And when I drive down the street and there's a bike in the lane and there's a golf cart on the other side, I got nowhere to go. So I want you to do something about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Communications, oh, sorry.
Yes, my name is Charles Stevens, and I reside in Temple Terrace. I'd like for council to make note that Mr. Baroni that was up here and says that he resides at 104 Mission Hills, there is not a house at that location. I would like for you guys to have code enforcement check into that.
Anyone else? In regard to communication and petitions, there are none. In regard to the consent agenda, there's none. In regard to public hearings, ordinances, and resolutions, there are none. In regard to council business, there's none. And in regard to new business, today we are addressing changing the 8-hour-a-day, 5-day work week to a 10-hour-a-day, 4-day work week. And to introduce our issue and provide an explanation, I recognize the city manager Bynum.
So, the issue that we're talking about today is the 8-hour work week, and we're going to be proposing to change that to a 4-day work week with 10 hours. And we're going to be hearing from the different people, for the different department heads, the public, to see what people think about the pros and the cons, and we're going to discuss that and possibly come to a solution.
Thank you. All right, first we'll recognize the police chief.
Concerning the issue at hand this morning, it can work for the police department, but there are several concerns that I have. Primarily with our contract officers, they are under a union contract that is a 12-hour workday and an 84-hour pay period. And so switching that over to a 4-day, 10-hour workday doesn't work, because we need to have those officers out on the streets 24/7. And so the way we have it set up right now is one of the best for how we are handling things. There are other ways of running this rather than just the 12-hour workday. There have been other ways of doing it where it's an 8-hour workday, but the problem with that is there's 3 shifts. There's the day shift, there's the swing shift, and then the mid shift. And the problem with that is the people are never home. When they are home, they're sleeping, they're worn out, the body never adjusts, you're never fully there. And so for the health of the individual and for the health of their family, this doesn't work. And so the decision that the chief of police has made, where it's a 12-hour workday and an 84-hour pay period, it works best for where we're at. Now, with the issue at hand of a 4-day, 10-hour-a-day work week, that does work for some of the employees that we have involved. For instance, we have dispatch, we have evidence, which we can work only 4 days a week and 10 hours on those days, because we have other people who can cover the positions. So for evidence, if the person who's in charge of handling evidence is on vacation or it's their day off, we have other officers who can step into that position and fill the role while they are gone. And so for positions like that, it does work, but it doesn't work across the board. And so it comes down to, I'm for this change in agenda, or not change in agenda, but change in the work week if it is dependent on the head of the department. If it is given to the head of the department, the chief of the department, you get to make this decision. You get to decide where these changes are put into play. I think that works best with not only the chief of police, but also with the other departments, because it takes that head of the department to know which people can take that work week, which people need to work longer, which people can take that shorter work week and where it works. The benefit of it, we've talked about how it's a saving, and also it's been mentioned that by having a 4-day work week, the individual has more time for his family. This also becomes an issue though, because say I'm supposed to get off at 5 o'clock and I have to work another 2 hours past that until 7. What am I going to do for my kids if my wife's also working? What am I going to do, for childcare, or if I'm taking care of my parents at that time period? It prevents also negatives along with the benefits, and so it's something to consider. And if this decision falls back on the head of the department, the chief of the department, the chief can know those people, know what they need, and for someone who can work only 4 days and work a longer hours, then they can do that. But for someone who needs the traditional 5 days a week, 8 hours a day work week for their family position, for where they're at, for their own health, if that decision falls back on the chief of the department, then that puts it best because he knows the people that are under him.
And for the record, can you please state your name and title?
Jay Hopkins, I'm the chief of police. I reside here in Temple Terrace.
Thank you. So at this time, I will ask for comments and questions from council members and the public. I recognize Councilman Montgomery.
I would just like to say, as a councilman for the people, I recognize Chief Hopkins's service to our city, and I would just like to say, I understand his points that are pro under the chief's discretion, but that could be seen as giving yourself more power in this. So where does the accountability fall?
So the accountability is already built in there because with the city manager appointing me as the chief of police, it falls to me to have that responsibility to make sure the day-to-day business is handled, to make sure we have officers on the streets, we have people in place where we need to have it. That responsibility is already on me. So making this decision, it's already a power that has been placed upon me to make sure the scheduling is there, to make sure everything is already there. That responsibility is already on me, and I'm already accountable for that. And so I will just continue to be accountable for this change in policy.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. I will now recognize the fire chief. Please approach the podium, state your name and title for the record.
Good morning. As chief of the fire department, we had a meeting with my staff about shortening the days of the week for work, discussing the 4-day instead of the 5-day that we have right now. We went through the advantages and disadvantages from these for our department. Keeping in mind that we have to be on office 24/7, I would like to bring something else to the table that would work better for my department. We do agree with the change in hours on our department, but we would like to suggest something different that will accommodate better to our needs. And this would be somewhere in between. 10 days of work, it's already exhausting for our guys and for everybody in our office. So we have discussed 9 hours instead of the 8-hour day. And these are the benefits of why. It means that you have more hours of coverage in the day. And it means that the employees have the flexibility of work schedule, which helps a lot for parents, like the police department already talked about. Means you can come in an hour earlier and still leave at 5 o'clock, for example, or come in an hour late if you have kids to be dropped off at childcare and possibilities like this. It would be something that would be upon approval of our chief department and everybody on our council, but it gives more flexibility to the schedule. It doesn't have to be mandatory, so if some of our 10 people in office wants to keep either the 8-hour or the 10-hour, that we would be willing to work with that. The reasons why the 10-hour wouldn't work for us would be because that means that we would have 2 people out of office every week, which compromises a lot our ability to be there for our city when they need us the most. So instead, with these new presentation that I'm bringing on the table for the fire department, which is the 9-hour shift, like I said, it would mean that it would mean 26 days of vacation a year, which can be kind of a downside, but it still has a good side, which means because our employees would have more time with their families, a little bit more control over their schedules, more office hours for the public, and which also means very development in our offices. But the really good side of this is that instead of having 2 people gone from office, we will have one person gone from the office. And on top of that, it means that the person that is gone, it won't be gone from office, won't be gone every single week in the same day. It will be something that will be rotated, which means that that spot will be covered constantly, and it won't be left, like, let's say every Friday our chief won't be gone. It will be sometimes on Friday, sometimes on Tuesday, sometimes it will be a lot more flexible, which gives our office a lot more ability to be there for our city. So we are in for the change in office hours and everything we work with, but we feel that the 10-hour would be just extremely demanding for our people, and the 9-hour would accommodate better to our needs and the city needs and of the employees too.
So again, for the record, please state your name and title.
Paula Bermudez, and Chief of Fire Department.
At this time, I will open up the floor for comments and questions from council members and the public. Yes. Yeah, please approach the podium. You want to step aside and go first? Right.
My name is Pam Shoshone. I'm a resident of Temple Terrace. I support the change in the work week. The reason being is that right now, citizens cannot come in and do city business because they're at work. They're at work the same hours that the city is open, and the city is then closed when they get off of work. So when I get off of work at 5 o'clock, so is the city offices closed. If the city was open longer each day, then the citizens would have a chance to come in and pay their water bills. They'd have a chance to come in and get permits, talk to code enforcement, and actually get the city business done without taking off time from work. Also, it's better for city employees because they may be able to take that extra day now that they would be off during the week and perhaps volunteer at their child's school. They would also be able to run errands during that day off when the kids are in school, and they won't have to drag their kids around with them while they're trying to do their errands. So in reality, I think that would be accommodating for the citizens and for the employees of Temple Terrace. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the fire chief at this time? All right, thank you. I will now recognize the finance director. Please approach the podium, state your name and title, and address the issue for us.
Hello, I'm Preston Nichols, the director of the finance department. As far as the issue of changing the workday week, we are for it. I went around and I asked all the different employees of the department. I'm here representing them, so I am their voice. I want to let you know what they're thinking, how this could affect them. And overwhelmingly, there was a lot of yeses, a few no's, but overwhelmingly, people thought this was a good idea. First, of course, we mentioned it would free up a lot of time for their families. A lot of the people working in the department, they have a lot of children. There's a specific woman in the department who has 4 kids, and she could really use this four-day weekend to really benefit her. And it would just be something that would be good for them. In fact, I even have one employee who's in a previous job has done this before, and he actually was willing to take a pay cut in that previous job to work only 4 days in that week. And of course, along with that, having an extra day off, even though it is a little bit longer days, having that extra day off reduces stress and that, of course, increases productivity, and that's something that was talked about. As far as the financial impact on my own department, I consider savings possible with the building cost, with electricity and heating. Looking into that, really, we still open the same amount of hours, so that wouldn't really affect high or increase or decrease in that. So that's something we wouldn't really have to worry about. If we had all committed to a specific 4-day a week where everybody comes in at the same amount of times across all departments, of course, we probably would see a decrease in the cost overall, but likely we would have to have a scattered type of setup with all different departments, especially with the firefighting and the police departments. They have to be here on call 24/7, so every single day. So that would probably be with just all the other departments, of course. But I think what's important about this whole situation is finding what works best for each department. So we don't need to have just a set come in Monday through Thursday and then have Friday off. It can be however it works best for each department. Some of the ideas that some of the employees had, 4 days with 9 hours each day, and then come in Friday morning, and that's a 4-day or 4-hour day on Friday, so they could get home early on that day. And then some of the busiest days in our department is right on Monday morning or Friday in the afternoon. So Friday would be a very important day for us to be here. So instead of taking Friday off, it could be Monday, Tuesday, take Wednesday off, and then Thursday, Friday. It could be something of that variation. Or, you know, we of course, we do the Monday through Thursday or the Tuesday through Friday, whichever works best. And I think that's what's important. Obviously, we are serving the people in the community here at Temple Terrace, but I think as far as the city goes, our most important asset is our employees, and we need to take care of them as best as we can. So that's all I have.
Are there any comments from the public for the finance director at this time? Yes. Please approach the podium.
Jeannie Barlow, 11250 North 56th Street. I'm just questioning the finance director. Are you going to pick the same days each week? I'm a little confused because it sounds like one week you take off certain days and then the next week you change it up and take different days. Are you going to talk about the same schedule every week, or are you going to change it up?
So each department will decide what's best for them, and then they will set that in place, and that's what they will do each and every week. But it'll be really up to the department what's best for them, really what they want to do. And I think that's what will work best. And once they decide what they want to do, they can implement that, and they can just do that week to week. And of course, also, we could run trial periods. It doesn't have to be set in stone once we do it. I think just trying something out would be good, and figuring out what works best. So if something we start doing doesn't work out as well, can switch it up or just go back to what we're doing originally. But
Any questions from council members at this time? Yes, recognize Councilwoman Slatter.
So you're talking about each department having different hours for, right? Each department has like a different day off. Would that not be confusing to people who need to get to certain departments on specific days if they don't know exactly what days they're going to be there, depending on what department they need to go to?
yeah, and that is, I mean, that is a con, obviously, but that's just something we have to work around, I guess.
Any other questions? Yes, I recognize Councilman Bingham.
Yes, so due to the nature of the type of work that you do, obviously is a very different situation for the fire and police department, but mightn't a 4-day work week with 3 days off create an unnecessary amount of backlog and impair efficiency?
I talked to a lot of different people and in the department, and with them, they said that would not affect their work at all. It would be about the same, so they wouldn't be caught up or anything, so it wasn't going to affect them, and they were for it, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. And I recognize the Leisure Services Director. Please approach the podium, state your name and title for the record.
Hello, I'm Abby Hudson, Director of Leisure Services. So as far as this issue is concerned of switching to a 4-day work week, for the Leisure Services Department, this would be completely unrealistic and incredibly inconvenient for us. So Leisure Services is over the library, of course, which is open 6 days a week. And then also it's over the Parks and Recreation Department, which has a number of different recreation centers, some which are open 7 days a week, some which are open 5 days a week. And all of these places are community gathering centers. They incorporate families in the community. The library, of course, offers, books, internet, different things for people in the community. And if we reduce the hours that the library is open to only 4 days a week, then that's going to be an issue for some people that need to come into the library, several days a week. Same goes for the different recreation centers. The Lightfoot Center does offer free meals for the elderly, and that's 5 days a week. So reducing that to only 4 days a week would be an issue. There would be elderly people coming in and they're wanting a free meal and it's not going to be there for them. And as far as the Family and Community Rec Center goes, they are open 7 days a week. So this would become a problem for parents that are working. They usually send their school-age children to these rec centers after school for various programs and things. So if these rec centers are closed, a few days of the week, they're only open 4 days a week, that's going to become an issue for parents that are looking for a cheap option for services for their children. So with all of those things taken into consideration, the closing for a few days a week, only opening 4 days a week, that's going to deny members of the community access to these services, and that's going to really inconvenience families. So.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who have questions? Council members, does anyone have questions this time? Yes, I recognize Councilman Bingham.
Have you considered only switching the administrative side of things over to a 4-day schedule?
That is something we could take into consideration, yes. But I think overall, the number of staff that's needed at these places, just having them there, and they really do rely on the administration for the support during the day. So I think not having the administration would really become a problem too.
Yeah, I recognize Councilman Montgomery.
Thank you. I was wondering, along the same lines, what schedule is your administrative side on right now? Is it 5 days a week or is it 7 days a week to administer those programs? Will that be affected by this amendment?
Yes, so it does vary from department, but the rec center, the rec center and the library both operate on a 5-day-a-week schedule. So I think switching that to a 4-day would pose a problem because some of the rec centers are open more days a week than others. So having the administration only working 4 days a week would pose a problem for those different departments.
Noted.
Thank you. I would now like to recognize the Human Resources Director. Please approach the podium, state your name and title for the record.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and members of this council. My name is Adelia Harrell, resident of Temple Terrace, obviously, and I'm the director of the Human Resources Department. Please hear my thoughts regarding this issue. The Human Resources Department is strongly opposed to having a 4-day work week with working 10 hours per day for the following reasons. Firstly, as you know, we have a very small staff, only 4 people, and that would make it extremely difficult to fulfill our job requirements. We have a lot to do in the Human Resources Department. We cover insurance claims. We deal with risk management, which deals with claims and reports. We look at hiring. We have a major role in orientation and training. We also have to handle benefits, whether they be medical and retirement-based. Additionally, we also work with finance to do payroll. Earlier, Councilman Bingham asked the finance director if there would be a backlog with working only 4 days a week, and the answer is absolutely, especially for human resources, because we only have 4 people. If we tried to stagger shifts, that would mean that to cover a 5-day work week while only working 4 days a week individually, that also wouldn't work, given the fact that only 2 people would be working on Monday or Friday, or any given day that we choose to have as the 4th day, if you will. Additionally, the mental fatigue involved with working 10 whole hours a day would be immense for human resources, given the fact that our job is so detail-oriented. We deal with so much personal information that one small mistake on any given hour of the day, especially if we're working longer hours, which is what this proposal is about, it would be detrimental for the personal information that we could mess up, and we don't want to have to deal with a situation like that. Also, this would actually be 11 hours since we're not paid for lunch, and lunch is an additional hour. So we're in our office for 11 hours a day, and that's an extremely, extremely long day. Because we stagger lunch, we always stagger lunch where 3 of us are in while the 4th person is out with our current work week. So that means that on the 4th day, if we change to this new system, on the 2-person day, only 1 person would be in the office, and that won't be good in case there's a specific situation that would arise. We just don't want to have to deal with something like that. So with all these things in mind, it's pretty unsustainable for human resources to do this, and we really hope that you take this into consideration.
Are there any members of the public wishing to make a comment or question at this time? Council members, does anyone have a comment or question for human resources? Thank you. I now recognize the Information Technology Director. Please approach the podium and state your name and title for the record.
Good morning. My name is Natalia Restrepo, and I'm the Director of the Information Technology Department. Addressing the issue of a 4-day work week, the Department of Information Technology finds itself in a more neutral position. We are a department that is on call 24/7, providing help with technology and computer functions. We help with the installation, configuration, and management of all hardware and software. We provide security of electronic data and computer hardware. We also provide direction in the research, development, and implementation of new enhanced technology solutions. We provide internal desk assistance with troubleshooting and the repair of city computers, hardware and software. We work on providing support to every single department here, especially for police and fire departments, which are also departments that are on call 24/7. We work with city facilities, and we provide help for the city buildings for different things such as the phones, security, service, and internet. So as I already told you, we are a department that is on call for 24/7, and in our department we only consist of 3 people working. Therefore, if we were to change the 5 work week to a 4-day work week, we are not really impacted by that change. The main benefit we could find from that is that if on the 5th day that we will be working beforehand, the building will be closed, we wouldn't have to be coming here to a building. So that will be one of the benefits that we'll get from that. Other than that, this department is not really affected negatively by this change.
Are there any members of the public wishing to make comments or questions at this time? Council members, does anyone have a comment or question for IT? Yes, I recognize Councilman Montgomery.
Would this shift from 5 days to 4 days impact your availability? Like if, say, there's a computer crash, a system crash, and IT's not available on that day, is for the people who have to still be here, like the police department or fire. Is there anything how would that work?
Well, as I already said, we are on call 24/7. So either if we are on the building or not, if we get a call or an email for any kind of emergency regarding information technology, we have to attend that need. So.
Any other questions at this time? Thank you. So before I open up the floor for council discussion, I'll ask the city manager to address this issue in regard to day-to-day city hall operations.
Thank you. After hearing all this, I'd like to recap quickly some of the main points about this. The financial officer discussed about the productivity that would be increased due to the happiness of the employees. And there's kind of some opposing viewpoints on this because the long hours will actually decrease the productivity towards the end of the day because like the waning off of the exhaustion from the day, but also, like he said, the employee happiness could be increased through this. But the 9-hour work week, the 9-hour days that we were previously suggested would be the perfect middle ground for this because it would increase people's happiness for having the day off. What we would suggest is 9-hour days for 1 week, and then the next day we would have 4 days of 9 hours, except for the Thursday we would have an hour off to equal out to 80 hours in each 2 weeks. And this would also show us a way to have people on staff each Friday because we would switch it off. And like we were suggested by the citizens, this would also help with the hours that the citizens work at the same time as the city council members. This would give citizens an hour after work to be able to come up here and get their business done. And for any of the mothers, this would help with the daycare because daycares are generally operating around the normal 8-hour work days. And so this would give us an opportunity to kind of help accommodate that with, because the 10-hour work days, that would be much more difficult to be able to work around. But with the 9-hour days, we'd be able to possibly accommodate anybody in this position by allowing them to come in an hour early or figure out other accommodations for that. So besides that, like we all know that we typically don't get off like right at 5 o'clock, and this wouldn't change it that much because it would just be the filling of the other hour. But we'll have to talk about any legal issues about the overtime for working 9 hours each day, figure out that, and I suggest that we have a workshop in the near future to finalize any decisions that we come to.
Thank you. So now the floor is open for council comments. I recognize Councilman Slatter.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
So you mentioned how like it would be easier to switch to the 9-hour work week because the daycares would be work around an 8-hour work week. So how would that affect City Hall employees that have kids in daycare that have to stay for the extra hour when they're supposed to, their kid is still in daycare?
So like I was saying, the 9-hour days, like we're probably not going to have too many people that this is going to affect, but the ones that we do, we can figure out how to accommodate them. They could possibly come in an hour earlier, or because we don't typically get off like right at 5, like we're not leaving the door right at 5, like there's obviously going to be some layover time, like daycares know that you're not going to get off right at the time, and so we'll be able to possibly do that, one of those two solutions. Good question.
I'd like to recognize Councilman Montgomery.
So it seems to me that the change wouldn't work for everyone. For some people, it'd be ideal. For some people, an amendment to the 9-hour day would be ideal. But the building is still going to be open for those who need it. So I'm looking at the money, and I want to save the taxpayer money. Like, I want to make sure we have money. I'm not seeing where it's saved in this amendment to the 9-hour or the amendment that we originally stated to the 10-hour days. And so what I'm looking for is how will this be a beneficial thing for us to change? Obviously, the increased happiness was brought up. I'm not in the happy business. I'm in the money business. We all come in here. We work our 8-hour days, and we seem to be doing just fine. So what I'm wondering is, where's this money supposed to come from? I'm not seeing it.
Thank you. Any other council members have comments? I'd like to recognize Councilman Bingham.
So I am in the happy business just a little bit. My concerns, and these need to be weighted equally, are of course the bottom line. Money is important. This is a city that runs on a tight budget, and we do a good job of what we do. Alternatively, though, the happiness of the citizens, both those in the public and those who work for the city, is equally important. The option to have a 10-hour day that leaves an hour open either in the morning and evening or 2 hours in the evening, depending on how the departments schedule themselves, to be available to the public additionally, is incredibly valuable to people. Okay. Of course, different departments have their own needs. The police and fire, for example, their services available 24/7 as well as IT. However, I think that because the departments have an individual nature to them, it might be appropriate for them to decide for themselves and to lump them all into a single bucket and decide one way or the other. That would be inappropriate, in my opinion. Thanks.
I'd like to recognize Councilwoman Slatter.
So we're proposing a change in the status quo, and for the status quo to change, there has to be significant benefits of changing the status quo at all, not just to something else specifically, but changing it at all. And I feel that since we haven't seen clear benefits from each department in changing at all, we need to take careful consideration in which inconveniences are just going to be swapped out for different inconveniences, and whether or not those outweigh not changing anything at all.
But any other council members? Yes, I'd like to recognize Councilman Bingham.
I would say as a counterpoint, there were enough departments in favor of this notion that personal happiness, of course, needs to be something that's considered. If a department feels that their bottom line isn't affected ultimately in a negative direction, and that's something that they as a department have decided that they would prefer, I see no reason to push that off. If you would prefer to have a 10-hour workday, 4 days a week, which several city governments and even federal governments have done and are working with currently, I see no reason why we should shoot this down necessarily. I simply think that it should be an individual department decision rather than one that we throw everyone together.
Yes, City Manager.
I'd like to make a comment on both of those. This is another benefit to changing it to a 9-hour day instead of a 10-hour day, because people are much more prone to accepting changes if they're more like a minimal change as opposed to adding 2 hours. And possibly in the future, if the 9-hour days work, then we could consider the 10-hour days.
Thank you. Any other council members? All right, so is anyone interested in entertaining a motion to move forward with the issue?
Nay.
Councilman Bingham?
So I would propose a motion that simply states that at the discretion of each individual department head, with consideration and of course, recommendations from their own staff, that each individual department is able to determine for themselves whether or not they would prefer to work a 10-hour day on 4 days a week versus the 5-day-a-week, 8-hour plan that everyone is currently on, or that many departments are currently on, and that coincides with most normal operating business hours.
Are there any seconds to the motion? I see a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And the nay sign.
Nay.
So in this instance, I will vote in order to break the tie, and I say aye. So, the motion proceeds. City Manager, do you have anything to report for this meeting?
I would like to suggest that we have a workshop to discuss this further. We need to do a little bit more research on this. We have to figure out the legal ramifications that are possibly important about the overtime for having more than 8 hours in a day. We need to figure that out before we do anything drastic.
Thank you for your remarks. And so, with that, the meeting is adjourned.